everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you have a very good afternoon. So today we'll be having a roadshow for Smart Port Challenge 2023. And in case you don't know what Smart Port Challenge is, it's actually an annual innovation competition from Pier 71, which stands for Port Innovation Ecosystem Reimagined at Block 71. It's actually a program which is co-founded by MPA, the Port Authority in Singapore, as well as NUS Enterprise. Yeah, so today we'll be covering two innovation opportunities. The first one is black smoke emission. How can we capture dark smoke emission? And the second one is wireless connectivity in port waters. How can we enable electronic transactions and data-intensive application in port waters? So today you'll be hearing from some of our colleagues at MPA. So to start things off, I would like to show a video to kick off the session. So could we have the video on screen, please?
Hi everyone, I'm happy to join you today to share about the Smart Port Challenge, Pier 71's flagship.
Sorry, let's reshare the video shortly.
Hi everyone, I'm happy to join you today to share about the Smart Port Challenge, Pier 71's flagship initiative. Over the years, the challenge has catalyzed many maritime innovations, enhancing Singapore's standing as a leading global maritime technology hub. This year's innovation statements cover three important focus areas for Maritime Singapore. First, sustainability to promote the use of green and clean energy and technology. Second, digital transformation to drive efficiency and transparency throughout the supply chain. And third, innovative solutions to enhance the safety and efficiency of port and ship operations. Pier 71 serves as a launchpad for maritime startups to expand their networks, forge partnerships across borders. Over the past few years, the maritime industry and investors have put in $50 million into Pier 71 startups, supporting their expansion in Singapore and overseas. Our Pier 71 alumni have not only raised significant capital, but have also made their mark globally. I'm encouraged to see the growth and success of our Pier 71 alumni as they expand operations and scale up their product offerings. We are proud of their achievements, the value they bring to the industry. Our startup community has taken the initiative to form the Pier 71 Circle to commemorate Pier 71's 5th anniversary. The Pier 71 Circle is an alumni club where members can remain connected wherever they are in the world. The club will also allow members to use their expertise and experiences to benefit future cohorts and to create a thriving startup community for the maritime industry. If you are an aspiring entrepreneur or maritime startup in Singapore, the Smart Port Challenge 2023 awaits you. Come join us to solve the most pressing challenges facing the maritime industry and be part of this exciting journey to shape the future of maritime Singapore.
I hope you enjoyed that video. So we'll kick off the first innovation opportunity. So I'll give a quick background before we head on. So the first innovation opportunity is a black smoke emission. How can we capture dark smoke emission? So some context is that ships emit black smoke due to incomplete combustion of fuel, which results in the release of small carbon particles which are harmful to human health as well as the environment. So the quality of fuel used by ships, engine performance, and operational conditions affect black smoke emission. And the International Maritime Organization has actually set a limit on the sulfur content of marine fuel in order to prevent black smoke emission due to the high sulfur content. Yeah, so now I'd like to invite Lakshman from MPA to share a little bit more on the statement, please.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks. So I'm Lakshman from the MPA. I'm from the Marine Environment and Safety Department. So I oversee the port's safety as well as the enforcement arm within MPA. So today, our problem statement will be how to automate assessment as well as identification of black smoke emissions within port. So like Geraldine shared earlier, black smokes are normally emitted by ships due to incomplete combustion of fuel, or possibly because of the fuel content containing high sulfur. So this can be solved through proper engine optimization or proper maintenance of the engine. So it's avoidable, and emitting excessive amount of black smoke within port is in violation of our port regulations. Sorry. Yeah, so let me just share a little bit on how we currently do our enforcement checks. Normally, majority of the time, we get notified by the public or vessels in the vicinity that one of the vessels are emitting excessive amount of black smoke. So then we will immediately deploy our patrol craft on the ground to the location and gather evidence. So once it's determined that an offense has really been committed, then we will raise infringements against the vessel itself. So as you can see, there's quite a few challenges on how we currently do things. The first issues that we have is that the PI needs to be physically present to raise the infringement. And a lot of times when we get notified of the infringement, right, by the time the patrol craft reach the location, the vessel has already stopped emitting black smoke. So we will not be able to have sufficient evidence to raise an infringement against the vessel. Then the second issue is that using our eyes, we are unable to detect and monitor black smoke during night hours of darkness. And the third point here is that we tried using CCTVs, but CCTVs being a fixed structure, normally the line of sight, if there's any obstructions, it will disrupt and we are unable to positively identify the vessel. Or CCTVs are also affected by visibility. So whenever there's a poor visibility affected by rain or hours of darkness, it becomes an issue of it may give the system may give out false positive and becomes an issue on identifying the vessels. So the solutions that the ideal outcome, ideal solution that we want is basically a round-the-clock system providing continuous monitoring of the vessels, which can positively identify which vessel is emitting black smoke, and if possible, provide an assessment on the shade based on the Ringelmann scale. This Ringelmann scale chart is basically a chart that is used to monitor the shade of smoke being released by the vessel. If possible, the system can give us an assessment depending on this Ringelmann chart, and or alert the officers so that whenever there's any emission, so that the officer can decide whether to raise an infringement or not. Yeah, so come to my end of the presentation. Do you all have any questions with regards?
There are no questions. Probably I'll kick it off first. I think you did mention just now CCTVs were previously tried and tested. Could you share a little bit more on the gaps and why CCTV might not be the best solution out there?
Yeah, so the issues when previously we had CCTVs is the first thing is that it's very labor intensive. The CCTVs that we had requires continuous monitoring.
Yeah,
that's one. And the second thing is that, like I shared earlier, they may have the line of sight is maybe obstructed by vessels. You know, when vessels are in the anchorage, they probably turn to tide. So sometimes the vessel that's emitting black smoke, we are unable to positively identify the vessels, so which is emitting black smoke. So to raise an infringement, we will require a clear picture of the vessel, its identification, as well as committing the act of releasing excessive black smoke. So that's the issues. So
of course, this is something that's important for solution providers to take note of. Is there any other areas that is important for them to take note of when coming up with a solution?
So we are quite open. We are quite open to all different, any kind of solutions. be it CCTVs, drones, or if you have any other methods of identifying black smoke, we're open to them. As long as it's important that as long as we can reduce our current the manpower used for identifying and catching this, that will be helpful already. Yeah.
Can you understand like how much manpower is currently needed to operate the CCTVs? Just want to understand how manpower intensive it is.
So currently in our port operation control center, we have guys on 24/7, but monitoring the situation in port. Not specifically only on CCTVs, but the CCTVs are there for them. Yeah, but we are meant 24/7 to make sure that everything in port is going out safely.
Okay.
Securely.
Thanks for sharing. I just wanted to circle back. I understand there are a few regulations in place as well as ways to calculate black smoke. Can you elaborate a little bit more on some of the regulations that might be in place? Okay,
so within Singapore, it is an offense, excessive amount of black smoke. Normally, the level of black smoke will be determined on our internal assessment. Once we determine and whether to raise an infringement, it's will be subjected to our internal assessment before we go ahead. But with regards to regulations, just now I shared that regards to sulfur content.
Yeah.
I think IMO itself, they also have implemented sulfur cap, if I'm not wrong, in 2020, sulfur cap of 0.5%. So this reducing this sulfur cap for maritime vessels, right, will reduce the harmful particles being released to the environment with regards to exhaust. Okay, thanks for sharing. Do you have any questions? Are there any questions online? Okay. Do you have anything you want to share? No, I will continue asking questions right now. Oh, you have one question? Okay, we have one question online.
So the question is, the solution has to detect black smoke at night and haze conditions as well?
Yeah, if possible, yes, that's something that we are keen to explore. Because our current system with CCTVs, that is one of the gaps that we have identified. So if the system is possible to identify, to detect and alert us of this infringement, that would be great. Yeah. You had a question just now? Oh, that was the question then. Can you repeat your question for people online?
How long does the black smoke last visually?
So it really depends. The black smoke, ships normally don't emit any black excessive kind of smoke. Normally it's due to incomplete combustion of fuel in the engine or possibly poor maintenance of the engines. So it's really it really depends on how severe. Generally, the cases that we see can go up to 15, 30 minutes, just a continuous emission of black smoke. Yeah. Okay, thanks for sharing. I think for participants online, some of them are actually not in the maritime space yet. So it'd be good to share with them maybe things that they should know about the maritime space when coming up with a solution, especially for black smoke. Yeah, so with regards to this, there's actually so with regards to, like I shared earlier, that vessels don't necessarily needs to release this black smoke where the shade is as dark as the few levels that I had earlier on the presentation on the Riggleman chart. So as long as the system, the solution that we want is that as long as the system is possible to prompt our officers on what is the level and also detect these emissions whenever it's being emitted, it will be a good solution for us. Yeah, because yeah, there you are saying. Yeah, no, that's about it. Yeah. Okay, I think we will save some time for Q&A and networking after this. So Chair, I'd like to invite the next speaker. So thank you for sharing. So the next challenge statement they'll be covering is wireless connectivity in port water. How can we enable electronic transactions in data-intensive application in port waters? So I'll give a quick background before I invite the next speaker up. So actually MPA is the supporting corporate sponsor for this innovation opportunity, and they are looking to drive digital transformation of the maritime industry and positioning Singapore's hub port
and as a sorry as our port as a leading port globally. So Singapore actually is one of the most efficient and reliable ports in the world. However, certain areas can still be further improved, and that's what we hope to be sharing today. So I'd like to invite our next speaker up to the front to introduce himself and a little bit more on what he does at MPA.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Thomas.
Maybe you can use this mic for
Thomas from MPA. I'm the Director of Technology and Innovation. And basically, I oversees the industry ecosystems development areas, including some of the Pier 71 and Smart Port Challenge initiatives, working together with NUS Enterprise, and also industry digital transformation initiatives. So as you're aware, the MPA has rolled out a number of industry digital transformation initiatives. And one of it is actually concerning our port waters and the operations within the port waters. We have a very busy port waters in Singapore. At any point in time, about 1,000 vessels will be in the port waters. We have about 1,600 propelled hovercraft in Singapore. There's also undergoing transformation in terms of using sustainable fuels and in terms of digital transformation and automations. And one of the challenge that we have is actually in terms of the communications, access to internet. And without good connectivities in the port waters, actually a lot of these transactions today that's happening in our port waters is still very manual and paper-based. As you can imagine, even though our port, a lot of functions are actually already automated through electronic port clearance and electronic clearance. The agents, shipping companies, they can do a lot of these transactions online already. But when it concerns some of the hovercrafts and the customers in the port waters, for example, in the case of providing fuel to the ships, providing ship supplies to the ships, doing some of these transactions, actually the different parties, the buyers, the sellers, the providers, the surveyors, they have to come together to do certain transactions. And today what happens is that they either bought another stakeholders' vessels to basically manually sign off some of these transactions when the operations take place or after the completion of operation, they have to sign off. So this paper and manual operations is making a lot of this contact going from vessels to vessels, which is kind of presenting a bit of the safety hazards to the personnel that are in the ship, in the sea, because people have to actually board another vessels from their own vessel. So all this climbing up and down the ladders, jumping here and there is not good for safety. And secondly, of course, if these people still have to rely on a big stack of documents that they'll sign off with the customers, that's again very inefficient. So the connectivity in the port waters today, of course, there are a few options. One is you can leverage on the 4G that has already been rolled out for a number of years. But of course, 4G coverage in the port waters is not 100%. And the signal strength, the coverage varies from location to location. So when running applications, if you have unreliable coverage and throughput, that presents a problem to the people out there. And I think another options, of course, the community in terms of the users and hovercraft they consider is the satellite communications. But we also know that satellite communication is very costly. Very few hovercraft actually are equipped with such facility and capability. So going forward, we also don't expect many of them to equip themselves with satellite communications. So then the question is to allow electronic transactions sign off to take place. Sometimes real time is required, sometimes not so. Transmission back to the shore and also pulling information from the shore side, from the cloud, all these require good internet connectivities. Then the question is today, how can we enable those transactions to take place, taking in consideration of the 4G coverage that's already available, though it's not 100%. the 5G that will be rolled out tomorrow, but again, 5G has a range and certain other limitations. So how can we empower the hovercraft operators to actually enhance their internet connectivities? This is at the more at the macro level. I also want to share that another connectivity issues is relating to not just the 4G or SATCOM coverage, but it is more about the line of sight. Because when the mother vessels, meaning the visiting vessels that are coming to the port, and the service provider hovercraft is coming together side by side, depending on the orientations, the communication may be blocked by another vessels. As you know, this electromagnetic wave doesn't pass through metals and all these objects. So again, if it is blocked, it presents a problem. So various options has been explored in the past, including, locating where the antenna position could be on the vessels, maybe using drones, or some people thought about putting balloons and things like that. But I think these have a kind of a limited success. So basically here we are looking at innovative solutions that can help the hovercraft to enhance their internet connectivity in the port waters. And I believe this issue is not just limited to Singapore. Of course, we have a bigger problem because of the amount of the vessels in our port waters. But I think it's also applicable to some other port out there in future. They are looking for digital transformation. Yeah, so I think briefly that's the problem that we have, and I'd be happy to take on some of the questions.
Any questions from the ground? Okay, you can use this mic.
So I think 7-8 years ago, M1 have a press release with MPA that's supposed to reach 4G, supposed to reach 15 km. Is that the realistic working range now?
I think the 4G rollout earlier with M1 has been quite successful. The coverage, based on the map that we see, the heat map that we see, the coverage has been quite good. Not 100%. Some places are like green, some are more in the orange color. But there are two issues. One is that when the signal strength is low, some of these applications get affected. Especially when the coverage is not very good. That's one. Two is that the 4G bandwidth, so far, some of the applications, it is still not kind of good enough. And three is, as I said, there are still line of sight problem. For example, in the case of bunkering, when we want to digitalize the entire bunkering is basically providing fuel to the ship. When we want to digitalize the 10-over documentations, right? The trials out there shows that actually when the vessels is in certain orientation, it get blocked, and when it get blocked on the shipboard, you just can't complete the transaction because some of these applications uses digital signature, which requires immediate or live connectivities to the cloud. So these are some of the issues that even though there are 4G coverage, but it's inadequate to give a good reliability.
So when you say the bandwidth or throughput is not enough, but from what I hear, these are mostly text-based. These are document-based. There's no, maybe photos, but not even to the stage of videos, right? But somehow the 4G still cannot get through, even though it's text-based.
Yeah. So the use cases right now that we are having is one is on the bunkering. We want to digitalize all the bunkering transactions, which is a lot of paper-based. The information from the mass flow meter runs in tens and hundreds of megabytes. So not super big, but it's still fairly significant. Then there are some photo shots that has to be taken, so has to be transmitted to the shore. So this bunkering process basically has a part on the B2B transactions, which is between the buyer and the sellers, surveyors sometimes involved. And also there's a B2G component, which all the bunkering transactions in the future has to transmit a lot of these information data to the regulator. So some of these files are pretty big. And this is immediate.
You say up to 100 megabytes?
It could be up to 100, depending on the length of the bunkering transactions. Yeah, some of are as small as 10 megabytes. But this is just the immediate use case. In future, we are looking at things like remote pilotage, smart vessels where the shoreside operations have to monitor the health of the vessels out there, hovercraft out there, and which require a lot of rich information to be transmitted back to the shore. I don't know whether they will use video in future, whether drones applications, smart vessels, remote pilotage. Some of these are video kind of applications which will require really quite a good bandwidth and also latencies.
So you said that there are 1,600 harbor craft. In your bunkering scenario, for one of the mothership, how many harbor crafts you think are nearby?
The bunker tankers, the bunker supplier craft number today in our port are about 200. So these are the 200 vessels that we are looking at least in the immediate term to equip them with better connectivity to enable digital bunkering. Then the receiving side of the house, I don't know what is the transaction volume out there, but Singapore is a top bunkering port. So we deliver approximately about 49 million tons every year of the bunkers. So that probably translates to many hundreds of transactions every month.
Let me rephrase my question. For one of the ships that you want to connect into internet, how far do you think the next ship is?
How far,
Yeah.
as in
okay,
the distance?
maybe I got a bit of preconceived notion. At first, I thought that this is for the anchored ships, right? So just now you said there was anchorage, and then if they turn, sometimes they have no line of sight to the 4G tower.
Yeah.
That was what I thought.
Yeah.
And if they're anchored, they are parked.
Anchored. They are anchored ships.
Okay.
They are anchored ships, and the bunker suppliers will actually move to the ships to provide bunkers to them.
And what is the distance between each anchored ship to the next one?
Oh, you mean the proximity between one to the other, or between the supplier and the buyer? Okay,
sorry. So we are thinking of a mesh network, basically.
Oh,
so
mesh.
what is the range between each ship that we can realistically expect?
300 meters, a few hundred meters between each ship, but that is within the anchorage. That's within the anchorage. 300 meters apart.
300,
300 meters.
3, 5, 7, 1,000.
Do we have a? Yeah, because they have different size, right? Yeah. So the vessels, when they anchor, they have a swing circle, right? They have this swing circle. So depending on the size of the vessels, the swing circle will be different. On top of the swing circle, there will be a buffer safety that is required between the ships. So it really depends. I would say easily a few hundred meters apart, easily.
More than 500? Is more than 500 common? Should be 500. Okay. Okay. But those are the anchored ships, which are the clients, right? But you all still have your own hovercraft moving around, right? Is that correct? Yes.
Yes, yes. Just trying to understand how many of these.
Yeah, so with regards to when it comes to digital bunkering, normally bunkering operation is basically vessels supplying fuel to another vessel. So when these larger vessels, foreign going vessels, come into our port, they drop anchor. Like Thomas shared earlier, majority of them do take bunkers in Singapore. So if you are like I have to understand your background, you are trying to like do some mesh network, right? So the mesh network is currently how the bunkering takes place is basically you go alongside, and the issues that we face is basically whenever there's the orientation because of the tidal changes and everything, yeah, then the signal becomes weak and then they are unable to transmit back to the sea. So with regards to your question on how far they are and whether they are nodes. I mean, like for example, nodes as in harbor craft, right? It really depends on the situations. So the only thing confirmed in a bunkering situation is that there is a foreign going vessel as well as a bunker vessel involved. The other harbor crafts, the 1,600 harbor craft that's moving, may or may not be within that area. Yeah.
So what it means is that even though there are other vessels anchored over there from the visiting ships, but these may not be the ones that will be installed with the mesh, because these are all ocean-going ships that comes at different point in time. So they will not be able to support the mesh. So the mesh you're talking about probably is the hovercraft mesh. But again, the hovercraft, they are like all over the places. And there is no guarantee that any one point in time they'll be in the vicinity. So that's the part that I hope I address your question.
So just now you mentioned that you think other ports could have the same problem, but I have this feeling that this problem is very specific to Singapore because it's very crowded here, but in other places it's not so crowded.
I think there are two. One is because Singapore and MPA is always spearheading some of these digital and paperless transformation. And I believe probably we are at the forefront of this development. So probably other port didn't face this one because they are still happy and relying on paper transactions. So we could be the first or amongst the first that's trying out this digital process. As far as digital bunkering and digital ship supply is concerned, I think we are at the frontier of this development is concerned. Yeah.
Can I don't know whether this exists. The BUOY, the floating buoy, can that be a mesh point? Do we have? I've never seen that in our Singapore waters, but is it there?
Using the buoys
Yeah.
to put in some of these.
Yeah.
But the buoys then will require power.
Assuming the one is easily.
Yeah, I mean, assuming that can be done, then maybe, yeah. Basically, we are quite open to the different suggestion and innovative ideas. Yeah.
Just like to clarify, currently is the hovercraft that comes to shore, then you'll give them the papers to sign, is it? Or
No, not really. So what happens is that on the hovercraft, they will already have a stack of documentation. On the visiting vessels, they will also have certain stack of documents. So when the vessels come together, let's say they deliver certain supplies to the ship, they deliver fuel to the ship, then the buyers and seller, they want to see each other's signature, they will check the goods and things like that. So this is the documentation I'm talking about. And of course, when they finish the whole thing, it can be end of the day, end of the week, then they will bring some of this documentation to the back of office for processing. So all these take a lot of time, is paperless, and of course, subject to a lot of errors. Yeah.
also, I assume it's also like irregular timings for each of the mother vessels, for example.
Yeah, the time is irregular. Yeah.
Okay.
For the anchored vessels, currently, they don't have internet. They don't have internet even with satellite.
The visiting vessels, I think the visiting vessels they have
their own expense. Why don't they
have Satcom? But some of them they subscribe to the Satcom that is the lowest package basically. So the kind of throughput is also having an issue. So mother vessels, they have some kind of connectivity, Satcom. Sometimes throughput not very good. But it seems that they probably have a lesser issue. The challenge seems to be more of the hovercraft side, where these are the very smaller vessels are basically, and basically they don't. Most of them don't have Satcom. Yeah. So we are trying to explore 4G. 4G of course is quite cost effective, but again, coverage, latencies, and all these issues coming. Yeah.
Then let's say the hovercrafts, right? You also cannot guarantee that they'll be like close to the mothership, for example. They are really just anywhere.
The one that is delivering the service to the visiting vessel, yes, they will come. Yes, they will come alongside. But the rest of them, there is no guarantee. Yeah.
Okay.
I hope you get your questions answered. Thank you, Thomas, for answering as well. Yes, there are two questions online actually. So the first one is, how will the 5G network help in enhancing the network in the anchorage? Will it solve the line of sight problem?
Okay, so MPA is working with the telco to have a plan to systematically roll out the 5G connectivity in our port waters in tandem with the developments at the land side. So basically, it will be rolled out in the this year, next year, progressively as we reach out to our port limit. We think 5G will be useful in terms of throughput. Because I mean the bandwidth is really good, the latency is going to be good, but the coverage is one that we are not so sure. We are not so sure to what extent it can cover, because naturally the physics of the 4G will mean that the range should be better given the same power. So that's one. We are uncertain yet. We have to do some trials. Second is I don't think it can solve the line of sight problem. None of the electromagnetic waves will be able to penetrate matter. So it's quite clear that if it's blocked by the mother vessels, we'll find innovative ways to get around the line of sight issues. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. So we have another question online. So before getting into Singapore waters, do ships transmit data through satellite, or do they automatically transfer to the Singapore Wi-Fi or Singapore Wi-Fi network? Yeah.
Okay, so there are a few kinds of transmission. For regulatory reporting, today the calling ships use VHF. They call the MPA Port Operation Control Center to basically do some of this regulatory reporting. So that's one, and that's the established standard under the, I think it's under ILA, yeah. IMO, there are certain standards to it. So there are certain future development such as the VHF data exchange systems that's been explored that potentially can enhance upon today's VHF communication, enhance upon the AIS, which is tracking of the position, location, and other information about the vessels. But of course, AIS is a single direction, and the bandwidth is low and things like that. And in terms of the second part, which
hold on, sorry, need to look at the question again. The second part is, do they automatically
oh yeah,
transfer into the Singapore?
yeah. So then the non-regulatory part is where we are talking about using the SATCOM, the 4G and the 5G, you know, to do a lot of these electronic transactions. So this can be between the buyer and the seller party, but basically the buyers and the service provider, or it can be used for other safety monitoring, even potentially for MPA monitoring and compliance purposes. So these are the ones that potentially can use, you know, the other kinds of communication channels.
Thanks, Thomas, for sharing. I think to round out this session, quick last question. No, for Pier 71, the R in Pier 71 stands for reimagine. Any advice for people who are trying to reimagine their technology for Maritime?
Okay, I would say the maritime space, unlike the other sectors, are still at the nascent stage of transformation. And I think it's a great opportunities for tech startups who are kind of, you know, in the retail, in the finance and a lot of sectors. There are already a lot of tech startups looking at it. But in the maritime, based on our scan, I think it's still in the nascent stage of the development. So if you have a interesting and relevant technology, please look at the 10 over innovation challenge statements that we have published on the Pier 71 website to see whether your technology can be pivoted for the maritime sectors. I think importantly is MPA together with our maritime industry partners, many of them, including the problem statements sponsors, we have really bring the buyers and the demand drivers to you. So they are willing to put up their vessels, assets, their equipments and all that, including their data, their people, to do trials and pilots with you, provided you get shortlisted for the Smart Port Challenge. So that's the important part, because you don't have to knock on the doors of these people to look for opportunities. They are already there. They have a problem to solve. So that's one. And from the regulator side, we have already put in place a lot of enablers your regulatory sandbox, which means we are willing to give exemptions to rules and regulations in when safeguards are in place. We have a data hub, APIs and data to provide information, rich information about the calling vessels and about the harbour craft. And we have different, I would say, funding support mechanisms if there are worthwhile projects for the startups to pursue. So all the things have been put in place. We just need you to come forward with your innovative ideas and solutions.
Thanks, Thomas, for sharing, and thanks, Lakshman, for sharing earlier as well. So you can stand to the side now if you would like. Yeah. So can I have the slide on screen, please? So I hope it was an informative session. You got all your questions answered. So we actually do have upcoming roadshows as well. We have one on the 18th and 19th of July. The 18th one will be on marine insurance. So the supporting corporate sponsor is Lloyd's Lab. They are very well known for insurance, but not so in the Southeast Asian region. So we are working with them hopefully to bring to grow the market as well in Southeast Asia. And we do have one on 19th, which covers the biofuel adoption. Next slide, please. So on 20th and 21st, we are covering these fuel topics as well. Some of them are through an AMA session and some of them are through a roadshow. So some of the topics we are covering is for optimization, cyber readiness, as well as transforming carbon. If you'd like to join these sessions, you can head over to piers21.sg/news-events, or you can follow us on our LinkedIn page to scan and learn a bit more. So if you want to learn about the, can I have one slide back, please? Yeah, so if you'd like to submit your proposals, it's open until 31st of July, end of this month. And you'd like to check out the innovation opportunities that have been presented today or the other innovation opportunities, you can scan the QR code on the left. Finally, I would like to encourage you to continue following us on LinkedIn as well as our newsletters for updates on Piers 21 as well as the wider ecosystem. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and I hope you have a good weekend ahead. Thank you.